Well, Starbucks hasn't, McDonald's has, and I don't think it's
You'll get there in the end. I mean, is this a problem for you?
Well, in one sense, it should not be, because the country is large, it can absorb all this and still survive. I think the trouble is that our cities in India were industrial centers, and manufacturing centers. And now suddenly they're going through this process of becoming service-oriented, like cities like Bombay or Calcutta and so on. And nobody's asking what's happening to the people who are working in these factories which have closed down. And they're the ones who are being pushed to the margin, and you're creating an unstable city.
Now, in the globalized world, it's not just money that moves around fast, but people. Migrants flood into urban areas, creating problems of homelessness and overcrowding in cities around the world.
With the overcrowding, there's also crime involved in that. So there's, I'll put it this way, that you find people most of the time people are living in fear.
The big problem here is the very poor people. The poor people that live in the street.
I think there are a lot of extremely poor people, homeless people, especially young people. Lots of kids living on the streets.
Every day arrived a lot of people in São Paulo, another city, try to a new life, get money. It's difficult.
Kalpana, if people flock into the cities from the countryside and don't have homes and end up living on their streets, is it their own fault?
I don't think so. I mean, I think anybody who would come into a place to look for work, if there's no option for housing, then you squat on vacant land or on a pavement or whatever, even along railway tracks as we've had in Bombay.
And why should anybody else help you sort that out? Why should you look to the state for assistance?
Well, I think it is incumbent on the state to accept the fact that cities are made out of people who have a lot and people who don't have anything, but all contribute to the economy of the city. And I think, therefore, that is the role of the state, to facilitate the kind of housing which will be affordable to people who are at the bottom of the rung. And I think the trouble has been in our cities particularly, that there has been no planning for public housing. And this dates back to before independence.
Do you believe, Michael, that housing should be a human right?
It's part of the whole human rights story, that you need shelter, you need a roof. How can you operate? How can you have dignity? How can you bring up a family? How can you, a house is a hospital and a school. How can you go to work if you haven't got somewhere, some space in the world to live?
Also, there are forced displacements, that's the other thing that I think we've not discussed. And the point is, people are coming in because of infrastructure projects that are inevitably built, in the rural areas like dams or things, and people are being forced to come because they're just given no option.
Do you accept this, that housing should be a human right?
I would like to say that for many people the city is only the buildings from the physical point of view. And the city is the balance between the buildings and the space in between. And for example, in the case of Barcelona, if you ask me what is the first point, is the quality of the open space. And this is very, very important for the people. If you go to Barcelona this afternoon and visit the Ramblas, you will be in the core of the city, and this is the most important place, the most interesting place, the most fashionable place, and for all people.
In the U.S., one of the questions we always ask now is, whose place is this? And that's the importance of the public space. In Barcelona, with the squares, it's clear that this place belongs to the people. Public housing was never owned by the people mentally, let alone financially, by the people who live there, because they were isolates, and it was always the government's place where they were put.
You was talking about globalization a few minutes ago. I think the other phenomenon is localization. Is in fact the importance of working together at the local level, both with the total panorama of society. Okay. So you need to work with the private sector, with the people themselves, who are actually very good at delivering what they need.
Let me move on, Michael, because I know you wanted to raise the question of gender. One theme of this week's conference is gender as women, as the relative role of men and women in cities in the developed and developing world. Cities, after all, are built for men, by men usually, but they are not built for women, and surprisingly, they don't often work for women either, as we found.
I think women have a bigger opportunity to improve their lives than they did before, but I don't think that they have an equal opportunity yet.
the segregation isn't as bad as in other countries where there's still that African myth that a woman is a subordinate, you know. So here, they give you the opportunity, so long as you assert yourself and you work hard at it, you do get companies that upgrade you, but all at the same time, there's still that thing that a woman is a woman.
Wherever I might be in Calcutta, I should be safe enough, and my parents should be well prepared for the fact that I am safe enough wherever I am in Calcutta.
Now, for a lot of women in the world, it's true, isn't it, that cities are very dangerous places?
Well, if you look at the figures for developing country cities, you'll find that probably 40 to 50% of the households are female-headed, partly because of the migration that we talked about, partly because the men have left. So you have to deal with that fact. And then it's bad, not because of, it's bad because of things like sanitation. You know, there was a meeting recently and a woman eventually said, all I need is a toilet. You know, something simple like that.